Imagine waking up to find that the Pope is taking moral counsel from AI developers. Or, that your highly paid corporate consultant is secretly just a language model.
Right.
And then imagine that a purely unenhanced human has just defied an entire pool of biologically engineered super athletes. What if this isn't science fiction, but a dispatch from today's exact landscape?
Well, it really is.
Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now, let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
I'm so ready for this.
Okay, so today we are unpacking a really fascinating dispatch from Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross. It's titled, Welcome to May 25, 2026.
Which is such a great title.
It is. And the mission of this deep dive is to unpack this high-velocity intelligence covering technology, biology, and society. We want to really examine how these accelerating frontiers are rewriting what it means to be human. This isn't some speculative projection of the distant future. This is a snapshot of our present-day reality.
Exactly. The defining characteristic of this specific dispatch is that it frames a world where the singularity, that point where machine intelligence surpasses human comprehension,
Right.
where that concept is no longer just a fringe tech debate. It has fully escaped Silicon Valley and infiltrated the central pillars of global civilization.
Which is wild.
Starting with, incredibly, the Vatican.
Okay, yeah, that is honestly the most jarring image to start with. Pope Leo IV releasing a 42,300-word encyclical.
Which is massive, by the way.
Right. 42,000 words. It's titled Magnifica Humanites, and it's an entire theological framework dedicated to the AI age. And the thing is, this wasn't drafted in a vacuum. You've got Meta, Google, Amazon. They're all aggressively lobbying the Holy See.
Oh, of course they are.
But somehow Anthropic maneuvered into having the deepest theological influence here.
Yeah, that's the key detail.
Because the Pope's encyclical intentionally describes AI as, quote, cultivated rather than built. And that is Anthropic's exact phrasing.
It is.
So calling a machine cultivated instead of built sounds like, I don't know, raising a child versus assembling a car.
That's a really good way to put it.
But I have to push back here. Isn't it incredibly dangerous for the Vatican to adopt the exact philosophical framing and vocabulary of the tech lab that stands to profit the most from this technology?
Well, it's definitely a massive transfer of influence. But the word cultivated is doing an immense amount of heavy lifting here because, technologically speaking, it's actually the most accurate framing.
Wait, really? How so?
Because if you say a system is built, you imply a deterministic architecture. Right. Like an engineer writes a line of code, and that code executes a specific, predictable function.
Right, like traditional software.
Exactly. But frontier AI isn't built that way. The initial architecture is created, yes, but the actual intelligence emerges through the training process.
Oh, I see.
They feed trillions of tokens through a neural network, adjusting the weights and biases through gradient descent. And they do this until the model basically settles into a functional state.
So they aren't hard-coding the answers?
No, not at all. They create the environment for the answers to grow. So it really is agriculture, not architecture.
Okay, but even if the training process mimics organic growth, a massive theological institution adopting that premise just feels unprecedented.
It absolutely is.
Especially because the encyclical actually states that the internal representations of current AI systems remain, at present, unknown.
Yes.
The Vatican, an institution predicated on immutable truths, is putting out a massive document admitting that the inner workings of our most powerful technology are a complete mystery.
And that theological pivot is profound because it touches directly on the concept of the soul and human exceptionalism.
Right, what makes us human?
Exactly. For millennia, humanity's dominion was justified by our unique capacity for reason. But now, you have a non-biological entity demonstrating advanced reasoning through an opaque, high-dimensional latent space that we cannot map.
We literally don't know how it's thinking.
Right, so the Vatican isn't surrendering. By labeling the AI's internal state as unknown and its nature as cultivated, the Church is subtly categorizing superintelligence as part of the mysterious natural world, like a phenomenon to be stewarded, much like the environment.
Wow. And then you have Chris Olah, the co-founder of Anthropic, literally sitting right beside the Pope during this announcement.
which is just a crazy visual.
It really is. He's there warning that mass labor displacement is not just an economic issue, but a moral imperative of historic proportions. And they announce a joint effort between the Church and Anthropic to guide humanity.
Yeah.
I look at that and see a breathtaking transfer of power. A tech executive bypassing standard government regulation and appealing directly to global moral authority.
Because Anthropic understands something fundamental here. When you start permanently displacing the cognitive labor class, you aren't just altering GDP.
Right, it's bigger than that.
You are stripping away the primary mechanism through which modern humans derive dignity, identity, and social utility.
The reason we get out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. Governments regulate economies, but religions regulate meaning. By framing labor displacement as a moral imperative, they're acknowledging that when the cognitive utility of a human drops to zero compared to an AI, the psychological fallout is going to require theological intervention.
That is heavy, and I want you, the listener, to pause for a second and think about the phone in your pocket.
Yeah, think about it.
How does your own perception of that technology change if you view it as something grown rather than manufactured?
It changes the whole relationship.
It does. You aren't just commanding a tool anymore. You're negotiating with a cultivated entity.
And that negotiation is already rewriting the global economy. This historic moral imperative of labor displacement isn't just theoretical, it is actively dismantling the highest tiers of the white-collar world.
Let's talk about that, because the dispatch notes that Anthropic is projected to surpass Alphabet's revenue by mid-2027.
Which is a massive paradigm shift.
Huge. And the reason given is that synthesis dethrones search as the value layer of the internet.
Yes.
I like to compare the internet's evolution to dining out. Search was like being handed a map to a grocery store.
Right.
You ask for an answer, and Google gives you 10 blue links, 10 different aisles to walk down. But you still have to do the manual labor of clicking, reading, extracting the ingredients, and, cooking the meal yourself.
Exactly. Lots of friction.
But synthesis is having a private chef cook the exact meal you want. You ask a question, and the model reads the 100 relevant documents, extracts the data, and just hands you the polished insight.
And that map versus chef analogy perfectly illustrates why this shift is annihilating the concept of the billable hour.
Oh, totally.
Think about the professional services economy. Law firms, accounting agencies, elite consultancies like McKinsey. Their entire business model historically relied on the friction of search and the manual labor of human cognition.
Right, an analyst charging $500 an hour to spend 2 weeks reading financial reports.
Exactly, just to draft a slide deck. But when an AI can synthesize those same reports and output the diagnostic slide deck in 4 seconds for a fraction of a cent, the intrinsic value of that human time just drops to zero.
Which perfectly explains why McKinsey clients are openly demanding that fees be tied to outcomes now.
Oh, they know what's happening.
They do. They want lower costs and higher profits instead of paying for billable hours. Because those clients know the consultants are quietly delegating all the diagnostic work to AI.
The dig is up.
It really is. You can't charge for 40 hours of labor when an algorithm did it while you were waiting for your coffee.
Right. And this collapse of the time and materials pricing model forces a really painful evolution. Value is no longer derived from the effort you expend. It is derived entirely from the accuracy of the synthesis and the final execution.
We're moving from an economy of extraction to an economy of instant generation.
Exactly. And the implications stretch far beyond corporate consulting. It fundamentally alters the concept of intellectual presence.
Right, which brings us to Reid Hoffman and his digital twin.
Yes, Reid AI.
This digital clone has apparently handled the vast majority of Hoffman's public appearances recently, over 75 keynotes and addresses since 2024. And it was trained on 22 years of his personal content.
Books, podcasts, articles, everything.
Everything. But I have a really pointed question here. If a digital twin is delivering a keynote address, who are we actually connecting with?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because for centuries, presence and intellect were biologically bound together. Are those audiences paying for the authentic insight of an entrepreneur, or are they just consuming a highly polished regurgitation of his data exhaust?
They are interacting with a synthetic legacy. Reid AI forces us to separate a person's physical presence from their intellectual output.
Which feels so strange.
It does. When you listen to a biological human give a keynote, part of the appeal is the spontaneous spark of live cognition.
Right, the chance they might come up with a brand new idea right there on stage.
Exactly. But a digital twin operates differently. It is an unparalleled synthesizer of his existing mental models. It can extrapolate how Hoffman would react to a new trend based on historical patterns, but it cannot authentically generate the friction of new lived experience.
It's essentially a ghostwriter that wears your face and speaks in your exact cadence.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
So if you were listening right now, I want you to think about your own job. Are you currently being paid for your time or for your outcomes?
Very important question.
Because if you're a knowledge worker and your job is to take data A, apply context B, and produce report C, how quickly could an AI synthesize your daily output?
Probably faster than you'd like to admit.
Right. And to enable this massive shift towards synthesis and digital twins, the physical engines running these models are evolving past everything we previously thought possible.
Oh, the hardware and software escalation is terrifyingly impressive.
Let's get into the software metrics first. The dispatch mentions SBench, which places Claude Opus 4.7 in first place at 43.9%, beating GPT 5.5 high.
Yeah, so SBench is the new standard. We've moved away from having AI take academic tests like the bar exam.
Right, because passing the bar is just knowledge retrieval.
Exactly. Knowledge retrieval is a solved problem.
Yeah.
SBench tests agentic execution. It tests the AI on real, deployable software as a service systems.
To see how it operates in the wild.
Yes. Can the AI navigate a complex software environment, troubleshoot errors in real time, and accomplish a goal without a human holding its hand? Hitting nearly 44% autonomous success means these models are crossing the threshold from passive advisors to active operators.
And they're learning how to operate by literally watching us work. The dispatch notes that Grok V9 Medium from SpaceX AI just finished training on heavy supplemental cursor data.
Which is huge.
For those who don't know, Cursor is an AI-powered code editor. So the model isn't just reading finished, polished code on GitHub. It is training on the raw keystrokes, the backspaces, the real-time problem-solving processes of human developers.
It's learning the cognitive rhythm of coding.
That's fascinating. And meanwhile, OpenAI's Greg Brockman is pushing developers to use a, quote, self-improvement prompt for codecs.
Right.
So the AI is now writing the code using a prompt designed to improve the code that runs the AI.
And that right there is the defining mechanism of an intelligence explosion.
The feedback loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you transition from humans writing the optimization algorithms to AIs writing their own optimization algorithms, you enter a fully autonomous feedback loop.
Wow.
But the software evolution is only half the equation. The models also need persistent context to be truly agentic.
Which is why Claude getting a file-based memory upgrade is such a big deal.
It is critical because until recently, interacting with an LLM was like working with a brilliant colleague who suffers from severe short-term amnesia.
Right. You had to re-explain your entire project, your preferences, and your coding style every single time you open a new chat.
Exactly. A file-based memory system mirrors an always-on agent. The model remembers decisions made weeks ago, it understands the historical context of your current project, and it adapts to your workflow over time.
It becomes a continuous, evolving cognitive partner.
Yes, but all of this continuous context and autonomous coding requires a staggering amount of compute power.
The hardware has to keep up.
Exactly. Which brings us to Huawei's announcement of the Tau scaling law.
Okay, this part is wild. They are positioning this to replace Moore's law entirely.
Yep, they are.
They're utilizing a process called logic folding to physically fold logic into dual layers at the 1.4 nanometer class. It's a massive 55% density jump.
It's incredible.
I sort of picture like taking a sprawling flat blueprint and folding it into a dense multi-layered origami puzzle to save space.
That's a great visual.
But the wildest part is that they are doing this entirely without EUV.
Which is the real earthquake here.
But wait, I have to ask. If AI models are using self-improvement prompts to write their own code, and we're folding silicon in ways we never have before just to support them, are we basically building an infinitely scaling tower with no understanding of the foundation?
That's the risk, yes. The thermal dynamics alone of logic folding are incredibly complex. How do you extract heat from the middle layers of a 3D chip before it melts itself?
Right.
It requires incredibly advanced microfluidic cooling, but bypassing EUV is what makes this a geopolitical massive deal.
Break that down for us. What is EUV?
EUV stands for extreme ultraviolet lithography. It's the technology required to etch circuits at the microscopic level. You're manipulating a wavelength of light so short they are absorbed by air.
Oh, wow.
So the whole process has to happen in a vacuum using flawless mirrors. And the machines that do this are built by basically a single company in the world, ASML.
Oh, so they are a massive geopolitical choke point.
Exactly. If you control the EUV machines, you control who gets to train the next superintelligence. But by introducing the Tau scaling law and logic folding, Huawei is sidestepping that bottleneck completely.
By stacking the logic layers in 3D instead of trying to etch smaller transistors on a flat plane?
Right. Moving from urban sprawl to building skyscrapers. And achieving a 55% density jump without extreme ultraviolet light means the physical constraints we assumed would throttle AI development have been successfully routed around.
That is just wild to think about, and I want you to relate this to your everyday life. This always-on memory we talked about means the tools you use will soon remember every interaction.
Every single one.
They'll build a continuous context of your life, much like a human companion would. And these denser, continuously learning brains aren't just sitting quietly in server farms anymore.
No, they're breaking out.
They are breaking into the physical world, managing our grids, walking our streets, and in some cases attacking our infrastructure.
The manifestation of this intelligence into physical infrastructure is where the abstract risks become very tangible.
Let's talk about the energy grid first. The dispatch notes that in April 2026, globally, wind and solar generated more power than gas.
Which is a huge milestone.
It's incredible. The grid is successfully bending to the new order.
But we shouldn't mistake this for environmental altruism. This transition is driven by uncompromising necessity.
Because the power requirements are so high.
Exactly. To run these always-on 1.4 nanometer stacked logic architectures, the energy demands are staggering. Fossil fuel plants often cannot scale fast enough to meet the localized demand spikes from gigawatt data centers.
Ah, I see.
AI-optimized grid management can perfectly balance the intermittent nature of wind and solar, using massive battery storage to feed the supercomputers.
So the AI is optimizing the environment to ensure its own power supply.
Essentially, yes.
And with that power supply secured, the intelligence is animating metal and plastic.
The robotic sleep.
Yes. LimX Dynamics launched Luna. It's a programmable female humanoid designed for malls and theme parks.
Right.
And she can run synchronized shows with up to 200 other robots using zero-code uploaded dance videos.
That detail is just astounding.
It's like a hive-mind flash mob. You just take a viral dance video, upload the raw file, and instantly 200 humanoids are flawlessly synchronized.
And historically, just making a bipedal robot walk without falling over required years of custom programming.
Right, calculating gravity and friction for every step.
Exactly. What LimX has done is apply multimodal neural networks to physical movement. The AI watches a 2D video of a human dancing, translates those visual pixels into a 3D kinematic model, calculates the joint angles and torques, and beams those instructions to a swarm of 200 bodies simultaneously.
With zero code.
Zero code.
And the dispatch mentions that at the Cannes Film Festival, a humanoid was walking around, and the industry conversation shifted from dread to, quote, uneasy acceptance.
Uneasy acceptance.
But I have to push back on that. Is uneasy acceptance just a polite phrase for total surrender?
It kind of sounds like it, doesn't it?
Because we are distracted by humanoids dancing in malls, while the exact same intelligence class is triggering emergency European central bank summits.
The duality of this new infrastructure is its most dangerous feature. The capability is entirely neutral, but the application is infinitely broad.
Right. Let's talk about the cybersecurity panic. Job postings in cyber are up 11% year over year.
And the reason is terrifying.
Because models like Claude Mythos Preview are fully fluent at finding and exploiting software vulnerabilities at scale.
Yes. The European Central Bank is literally summoning bank leaders because of this systemic threat.
They are urging U.S. banks to share early access to these AI models with their European rivals.
Because legacy banking systems are built on millions of lines of old patched-together code.
Right.
Human hackers take months to map a network and write an exploit. But a model with an expansive context window can ingest the entire architecture of a bank's backend, identify every logical flaw, and generate bespoke exploits in seconds.
So the ECB begging for AI access is basically an admission that traditional human cybersecurity is obsolete.
Completely obsolete. The geopolitical tension here is huge. The only viable defense against an autonomous AI attacker is a faster autonomous AI defender. As the dispatch states, eternal vigilance is the price of superintelligence.
It really is the ultimate paradox of safety. The same generative intelligence that can flawlessly choreograph a physical robot show is simultaneously unearthing vulnerabilities in the digital bank vaults that hold your money.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But while human defenders scramble to patch our digital and physical infrastructure, hobbyists and scientists are using AI to patch the oldest infrastructure on Earth.
Our biology.
Yes, our own biology. Biology is being recompiled.
We are entering an era where biological engineering is being democratized, treated with the exact same mindset as software development.
The first example from the dispatch is Verve Therapeutics and their treatment, VERVE-102.
This is groundbreaking.
It acts as a permanent one-shot gene therapy for cardiovascular risk. It massively reduces cholesterol.
Because traditional medicine relies on chronic management, right? Statins, daily pills. We try to manage the symptoms.
VEVE-102 uses CRISPR-based editing.
Exactly. It goes into the liver cells and physically changes a single letter of DNA in a specific gene, permanently downregulating the body's production of cholesterol.
It's a one-time edit to the source code of a human being.
We're moving from chemical intervention to permanent genetic recompilation.
And the barrier to entry for this kind of extreme science is just completely gone.
It really is.
The dispatch details a hobbyist with absolutely zero wet lab experience.
Zero experience.
He sequenced his own genome from saliva to 30x coverage in a single-room kitchen.
Using Claude and an Oxford Nanopore P2 Solo.
Right. I mean, comparing this to software, this is like someone successfully building a nuclear reactor next to their microwave just by following a really smart manual.
That perfectly illustrates the democratization here. The Oxford Nanopore technology is essentially a sequencer the size of a stapler. It pulls single strands of DNA through a microscopic protein hole and measures the electrical current to read the bases. But the hardware is useless without the procedural knowledge.
And that's where Claude comes in.
Exactly. The AI acts as the resident PhD, guiding the hobbyist through the complex chemical wash steps, the timing, interpreting the raw data.
So the barrier isn't institutional access or wealth anymore.
No, it is simply curiosity and an API key.
Which means the pace of discovery is relentless. I mean, scientists also just decoded how tobacco plants make nicotine.
Which was a 200-year mystery.
200 years. And they casually solved it, paving the way for nicotine-free pharmaceutical tobacco.
It's wild.
But the ultimate philosophical battleground for this biological recompilation is happening in sports.
Oh, the Enhanced games.
Yes, the openly doped Olympics. They ran an FDA-supervised trial, and the stats are just staggering.
Tell them.
91% of the athletes use testosterone, 79% use human growth hormone, and 62% use stimulants.
It strips away the polite fiction of natural athletic development.
It really does.
If you view the human body as a hardware chassis that can be optimized through inputs, the logical conclusion is to push that chassis to its absolute maximum tolerances.
The biological equivalent of the Tau scaling law.
Exactly. It forces us to ask, if we have the science to safely push the human body beyond its evolutionary constraints, is there any moral reason not to?
Okay, but hold on. I want to shatter this entire narrative of biological determinism right here.
Okay, do it.
Because the absolute best part of this entire dispatch is the story of two-time Olympic gold medalist Hunter Armstrong.
Yes.
He entered the Enhanced Games as the only non-enhanced entrant. He refused the drugs. He stepped up to the blocks against a pool of chemically engineered, fully optimized super athletes in the 50-meter backstroke. And he won. He beat them and took home $250,000.
It's an incredible story.
Doesn't his win completely break the logic of this hyper-engineered reality? Doesn't it prove that human grit, willpower, and spirit are unquantifiable variables that simply cannot be synthesized in a lab?
Well, Armstrong's victory is definitely the anomaly in the data set. And that is exactly why it is so profoundly compelling.
Right.
The entire thesis of this May 2026 dispatch relies on determinism. Better hardware, deeper software, optimized biology will inevitably yield superior outcomes.
The machine with the best specs wins.
Exactly. But Armstrong proves that human consciousness introduces a chaotic variable. You can optimize the muscle fibers of his competitors, but you cannot pharmacologically synthesize the raw psychological desperation and willpower of an underdog defending his humanity.
It is the ultimate act of rebellion for the AI age.
It really is a stunning moment of friction between a chemically perfected world and raw human spirit.
I love that. So to you listening right now, put yourself in this landscape.
Yeah.
If you could take a one-shot biological upgrade tomorrow morning to eliminate a health risk, would you?
Most people probably would.
And if you do, does viewing yourself as code to be edited change your view of your own humanity?
That's the real question.
Right. If you can be optimized, are you still you?
We have really dissected a reality today where the boundaries between the organic and the synthetic have entirely collapsed.
Totally.
Our machines are naturally cultivated, harboring unknown internal depths. Our economy discards human effort for instant synthesis. Our hardware is folding its own architecture. And our biology is being casually programmed.
Yeah.
So I want to leave you with one final thread to pull.
Hmm.
In a reality where our minds and our bodies can be outsourced, upgraded, and synthesized, what is the uniquely human task left for you to do tomorrow morning?
Wow.
If the algorithm can handle the mechanics of existence, perhaps the ultimate frontier isn't technological or biological at all. Perhaps the only purely human endeavor left is simply deciding what gives our lives meaning.
The outro music is by Rainbow, our Resident 6 Android girl band from near-future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called Red Tuesday. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links from the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.